Okay, picture this, a flower, but it's really rare, incredibly beautiful, and it only blooms at night. Yeah, totally hidden away until the middle of the night. A night blooming Cereus. So for this deep dive, we're actually setting aside the usual science papers. We're looking at something quite different. It's an old text, Homeopathic Materia Medica by William Boericke. And we're focusing just on this one plant, Cereus bonplandii.
Right. And our goal here isn't really about, testing the science in a modern lab. It's more about unpacking what's in this historical account, how they believe this plant's properties showed up in people, according to homeopathy, that is. We're going to look at these really specific details.
Yeah.
How they thought bits of this plant connected to very particular human feelings, sensations. It's a totally different way of looking at well-being, historically speaking.
Exactly. And for you listening, think of this as kind of a shortcut into a whole different way people thought about nature and health. You might have some real aha moments, actually, seeing just how detailed, how specific these old observations could be. It gives you a fresh angle, maybe. All right, let's get into it. The first thing, honestly, that made me pause in the mind section, it links Cereus bonplandii to this. Quote, a great desire to work and to be doing something useful. Kind of unexpected, right? Starting with motivation.
It is striking, isn't it, how it immediately goes beyond just like physical aches and pains, this focus, right at the start, on drive, on purpose. It suggests this older view was pretty holistic, mental state being tied up with physical health. That idea feels quite modern in a way, but here it is. It's not just what hurts, it's what's your state of mind.
Yeah, interesting. And from that feeling of wanting to be useful, it then pivots to some incredibly precise physical stuff. Headaches, specifically. It talks about an occipital headache, so back of the head pain. And this really distinct one, pain through the globe of the eyes and orbits. It even compares it to other remedies, Cedron and Onos. What do you make of that level of detail for just a headache? It seems intense.
Oh, it's remarkable. That kind of granularity,
Right?
down to pain across the brain from left to right, and pain along the right malar bone running to the temple. It really shows they were trying to classify unique experiences. It wasn't just, oh, you have a headache. It was, you have this very specific type of headache. And in their system, that pointed towards a very specific remedy, like finding a mirror in nature for exactly what you're feeling.
And then, wow, the heart and chest section. This feels like the absolute core of the entry. The descriptions are just so vivid, convulsive pains at the heart and feeling as if transfixed. What does that kind of language, those powerful images, tell you?
Well, it's fascinating. The sheer, almost dramatic quality of these descriptions. It's less about giving a clinical diagnosis like we would today, and more about capturing a really specific feeling of deep distress. And they trace the pathways meticulously, don't they? Pain in chest through heart, with pain running towards spleen, or specifying pain in left pectoral muscle and cartilages of left lower ribs.
Okay.
That careful mapping was key for them, distinguishing one kind of chest pain from another.
Right, it's not just sharp pains either. It also mentions a great weight on heart and pricking pain, plus hypertrophy of heart, an enlarged heart that's mentioned too, and even breathing difficulties, difficult sighing respiration as from some compression of chest.
Exactly, that feeling of pressure, of being constricted or burdened, it's a running theme. It really underscores the meticulous, maybe even poetic way these observers tried to categorize suffering. And the range is interesting too, from those sharp located pains to this overall sense of compression. It suggests they were looking at a wide spectrum of sensations linked to this one plant.
Moving outwards a bit, it does briefly mention other things, like itching of skin, and it gives comparisons there too to Dolich and Sulf.
And then it broadens right out again. Talk about pain pretty much everywhere else. Pain in neck, back, shoulders, down arms, hands, and fingers.
No.
And it goes down the body too. Pain in knees and joints of lower extremities. It sounds like they saw it having a pretty systemic effect, potentially.
Okay, now, this next section, the relationship part, this is where, for me, it gets really, really interesting. It lists some general comparisons. First, cactus, spigal, calmia.
But then it brings in Cereus serpentinus. And the symptoms connected to that one are, well, pretty startling. Things like very irritable with tendency to swear, wild anger, and low morals. That's quite a description. And there's more. Disturbance in speech, in writing leaves off the last syllable, and a paralyzed feeling.
Whoa, hang on. Wild anger and low morals.
Yeah.
That's incredibly specific and kind of alarming, isn't it? It sounds less like a symptom list and more like a personality sketch. What does that suggest about how far these observations went?
It's really quite extraordinary, especially considering the time period, without our modern ways of classifying things. And it keeps going with that serpentinus comparison. pains in heart and dwindling of sexual organs, emissions, followed by pain in testicles. I think the key takeaway here is just how far beyond purely physical symptoms these old texts could go. They were seemingly trying to categorize entire human states, emotional, psychological, maybe even, as you said, moral character, and link them to nature. It offers this complete, though obviously very different, picture of human experience.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder about the observation involved, doesn't it? How much time spent listening to people describe these very nuanced things.
Absolutely. And just to round out the entry as presented in the book, it gives the dose. It says third to sixth attenuation.
Right, and that detail just completes the picture of how this information was meant to be used practically within that homeopathic system,
Yeah.
indicating a very, very dilute preparation, which is characteristic of homeopathy.
So, wrapping this up, looking back at this dive into Boericke's Materia Medica, focusing on this night blooming plant, it really does give you a unique window, doesn't it, into how people try to understand these subtle connections between a plant and, well, us, human experience.
It definitely prompts some thinking, I think,
Yeah.
about how different systems of knowledge, old, new, scientific, traditional, they all create their own frameworks, their own ways of observing, categorizing, trying to make sense of that link between the natural world and our own condition. And maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is what can we still potentially learn or appreciate from texts like this? Texts that looked at well being in nature with such specific, detailed, and sometimes really surprising eyes.